After you walk out of an interview or a professional chat, should you follow up? Well, the short answer is yes, always, and it's really not that complicated as people make it out to be. Today, I'll be going over some of the key things you need to look at when following up after an interview or a professional coffee chat where you're talking with someone in a professional manner, such as advancing your career or expanding your network. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Yusuf and I'm a graduating student from the Schulich School of Business in Toronto, and I make videos about university experiences, professional career development, and much more. So if you want to watch more videos, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Now, following up after an interview or coffee chat is crucial. It's so important that an executive managing director, according to a Business Insider article, had a simple rule where if a candidate didn't follow up after an interview, they would simply be crossed off the list. As you can see, it's crucial to do so as it reassures your interest and it shows that you're dedicated, committed, and are able to build meaningful relationships and expand your network. First, let's talk about the importance of following up. Well, first and foremost, it reassures your interest in the job you're applying for, or if you're having a coffee chat, it reassures your interest in maintaining a relationship and expanding your network. This really shows the person on the other end that you're committed, that you are able to build these relationships, and that you aren't just there to waste their time. Additionally, in an interview context, it sets you apart as you'd be surprised as to how many people don't follow up after an interview for many different reasons and come up with excuses not to do so. As discussed earlier, you should be following up after every single interview and almost every single coffee chat that you do. Lastly, it shows respect for the person's time, as a conversation is two ways, as you are giving them your time and they're giving you your time, and following up simply is respectable and shows that you appreciate their time interviewing you or chatting with you. Now, diving into when you should follow up, there's no hard rule as to when, but there are some guidelines that I typically use and have worked well for me. A lot of it depends on the timing of your chat or interview. So typically what I've done in the past is if it's in the morning, say before 11 a.m. or noon, it's perfectly fine to be following up towards the end of the day or the next morning. If it's towards the end of the day, however, so afternoon, I typically would like to wait till the next morning or next afternoon to follow up, as it would give some time to pass between the interview. If it's a Friday or a weekend is coming up, you can generally follow up the next business day. So if it's a Friday, you can send a follow-up email on Monday. Or if it's a long weekend, just send it on the next business day. That's typically the best way to do it, as they'll see it the first thing that they come into office. So it'll give them a nice refresher of who you are, your conversation, and that you're still interested and are committed to the position or are interested in what they had to say during your chat. So in short, the general rule of thumb, I'd say, is about 24 to 48 hours. You could, like I said, you could do it the same day if it's a morning interview, but typically you want to be able to follow up within 48 hours. Additionally, it's ideally better to be following up in the morning so that it's the first thing that someone sees when they log in to their computers, because when people usually start their shifts, they're always looking through their emails. So it'll more likely be read and they'll be able to see it first thing in the morning. Now, when it comes to exactly what to say in a follow-up note, the number one thing that many people forget, and it's crucial, is to make it personal. It's very easy to tell if it's a generic message that has no meaning behind it, because a lot of interviewers and a lot of people go through receive countless notes, and you'd be surprised as to how many people send the same exact generic message. To make it personal, it's always important to mention something specific that you remember talking about. Now, if it was an interview, this could be an answer to a question you had at the end, such as what the interviewer's experience has been at the company, and you can bring up an interesting note about that. If it's a chat, you can talk about a common interest or follow up regarding something you may have mentioned. Whatever it is, try to make sure that it's personal and will help you stand out and shows that you were attentive, paying attention to the conversation. So the general format that you want to follow with a thank you note is to start off by thanking them for their time, whether it be in an interview context or a chat context. Then in the main body, you want to include some sort of message. So this is where you talk about the personal connection you had, something interesting that they brought up. And lastly, it's a call to action. So in an interview case, it could be something like, I look forward to more opportunities. Let me know if there's anything on my end. And in a chat case, it can be something like, I hope to maintain this relationship moving forward. So it kind of brings everything together and shows your intent of the note that you're sending. When it comes to the actual subject, if you're writing an email, it can be anything along the lines of great chatting with you, great connecting with you, enjoyed our conversation, something that will show that it's a thank you note, and that the person receiving knows that, okay, you're writing to say thank you or following up after some sort of chat or interview. Now let's talk about the method of communication. This is something that a lot of people have trouble with, and it can be kind of confusing as to where you should follow up. So the main methods of communications that you can use are email or LinkedIn. And it's always preferred to use their email as it's the first thing they check. It's something that's affiliated with their company, and LinkedIn notifications can get lost. So if you have a person's email, it's the best way to reach out to them. Now, please note, this is only if you have their email. So you have their email if you were communicating back and forth with them and you have the particular email of the person who was interviewing you. If you don't have the email, I personally wouldn't look it up or follow some sort of company format, as it can quite honestly come off a little stocky. That's just my opinion. And I would say that if you don't have their email, then you would move on to the next part of communication, which is sending a LinkedIn chat. So if you don't have their email, you can send them a LinkedIn message, or if you're not connected with them, a LinkedIn connection request with a brief note attached to it. So if you're already connected with them, you'd be sending the same message you'd be writing in your email as a message on LinkedIn. But if you're not connected with them, you can send a personalized invite. And please note that this invite has a very short character limit, so you have to make sure to fit everything into about I think 150 characters or something. So just be wary of that. But in my experience, I've done that, and that's worked perfectly fine as well. Phone calls are very rare, and they're generally reserved for people who are much more advanced in their careers and are kind of have that more one-on-one type of relationship with the people. So if you're a new graduate or early in your career, I would just stay away from phone calls and stick to emails if you have them. If not, then LinkedIn. Lastly, let's look at some important considerations and things that come up when following up with people. The first thing to note is that if you're being interviewed by a panel of people, so more than one person, I typically tend to follow up with the main person who's in the interview. So it's easy to tell who the main person is, as they would be the ones who are emailing you back and forth. Or if you're in the actual interview, it's the person who's taking the lead or the HR manager. So typically after a panel interview, I would only follow up with the main point of contact. So that being said, it doesn't mean that you can't follow up with the rest of the people, but always make sure that you follow up with the main point of contact. And then if you're following up with anyone else, only do so if you really built a connection with them, because you shouldn't be following up just for the sake of following up, and people talk. So if you send the same message to all the people within the panel, they'll talk and they'll know that you sent the exact same message. So if you really didn't build a personal connection with anyone else, that's perfectly fine. But please just make sure to follow up with the main point of contact. So if you do decide to go down the route of following up with multiple people within the interview, you can send the notes out separately, or you can kind of combine the two. It really depends on the context. So from my own personal experience, I had an interview with two people, and I actually combined both notes in one email and CC'd the other person. And I mentioned both of their names and said it was great talking to both of them, learning about their experiences, and etc. But if it's more than two people, I would try to send an individual note. But once again, just please make sure that it's not the same note and that you're only reaching out to other people in the interview if you genuinely are interested in what they said or made a connection. So I've actually included some examples down in the description below. It's a Google Doc file with a sample template that you can adapt to your own situation, with a email template as well as a LinkedIn message. So feel free to use that. Make sure to change it up and add in those personalized bits that we talked about earlier. Now, if you don't get a reply after you send a thank you note after an interview, don't be discouraged, as not a lot of people actually respond to these notes. It just means that they're really busy. They don't have time to respond to each note. So don't be discouraged. Just know that if you sent it, you're doing a great job, and that you have shown that you're interested in the position, and they definitely have taken note of that. Now, I know recruiting is very stressful, and if you don't get a reply for a thank you note, don't get discouraged. As mentioned, the recruiters are also very busy. They don't have time to reply to each note. Don't overthink it. Just by sending a note, you're doing a great job, and it definitely is noted on their end. Now, I wish you all the best, whether you're interviewing for a job or whether you're chatting with someone to expand your network. There's a lot of hard work that goes into both, and just make sure that you look back and reflect on the things that you've accomplished that have led you to that point. Even though you may not be seeing results in the short term, it's well worth it in the long run. If you made it this far, thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below or reach out to me anywhere you can find me. So that'd be Instagram or LinkedIn. Once again, good luck in your recruitment or networking journey, and I will see you next time.